My name is David Kennedy. I'm a professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice and the co-director of something called the National Network for Safe Communities. What that really means is that I'm part of a group focused on some of the very worst public safety problems in some of the most troubled communities across the country. These are entirely troubled minority communities. They are largely historically troubled African American communities. And I care about them, and a lot of people care about them because they are unholy concentrations of three absolutely unacceptable issues. One is that they are blazing hotspots for violent crime. So the national homicide rate, as I stand here talking today, has come down to about 4 per 100,000. That's the way the FBI and criminologists track this kind of thing. That means that there are 4 homicide victims per 100,000 in the population every year. That's the nation. And as my very good friend and colleague John Clofus at the Rochester Institute of Technology likes to say, nobody lives in the nation, we live in neighborhoods. Violent crime, especially homicide and gun violence, is amazingly concentrated by neighborhoods. And in the neighborhoods I work in, young black men are dying at the rate of over 500 per 100,000 every single year. And if you just do the long division, that means that more than 1 in 200 are dying mostly by gunshot. And what we know about this says that for every homicide victim, there can be 5, 6, even more non-fatal gunshot wounds every year, which means that if essentially you just think of this wheel turning year after year after year, nearly all of the young men get shot as time goes by. It doesn't work like that. If you work in these places, if you live in these places, you'll meet people who've been shot 6, 7, 8 times and are still walking around. And then many of them are not walking around. And as you walk these neighborhoods, you walk by over and over and over again all over the country the makeshift, heartbreaking street shrines to the dead that have become folk art in these neighborhoods. This is our modern America. So I said there were 3 problems. That's one. The second is that these are also the neighborhoods where especially black men get stopped on the street, they get arrested, they get prosecuted, they go to jail, they go to prison at astronomical rates. So as I stand here today, I am standing in Baltimore, Maryland, and about 10 years ago, the Justice Policy Institute in Washington, D.C. did a special study of Baltimore. And they found that if you were a black man aged 20 to 30 in this fine city, that on any given day, half of all young black men were under criminal justice supervision. They were in prison, in jail, on parole, or on probation. Not they had a criminal record, but they were actually under judicial control. We're a little bit north of our nation's capital, where the current statistical estimates say that if you are born a black man in Washington, D.C., your lifetime chance that you will at least go to jail is approaching 100%. Everybody gets locked up. If you are born black and male in the country right now, you stand a 1 in 3 chance of serving a felony prison sentence during your lifetime. And if you don't finish high school, the most current estimates are 70% of everybody goes to prison if you were born a black man. This also, in this great nation of ours, it is unconscionable that we are treating one of America's peoples in this way. And the first problem, which is astronomical levels of violence, and the second problem, which is astronomical levels of arrest and jail and incarceration, plus our awful racial history, add up to the third problem, which is an absolute rupture between these our most troubled communities and those who are most dedicated and most present to help them, which is, of course, the police. So I work in neighborhoods where the police genuinely believe that communities like living under these conditions of extraordinarily violence and chaos and jail and prison. And then I walk those same communities where the communities think the police are a racist occupying force who are deliberately letting these awful conditions of violence and guns and drugs go on because they believe that the police are part of the same historical racial conspiracy that controlled individuals and families as slaves and put them through the black codes and Jim Crow and fought the civil rights marchers with dogs and fire hoses and conspired to blackmail Martin Luther King and all of the rest of our genuine awful racial history. So one ends up, we live day to day thinking that having neighborhoods where death is routine and prison is routine and there is a near complete breach between the neighborhoods and the most present organ of government, the police, is normal and routine and that we can't do anything about it. And that is not right, as it turns out. There is a way out of this. It is being practiced all over the country, and it's fundamentally pretty simple. What turns out to be true is that the core violent crime is driven by very small numbers of people. In the most dangerous neighborhoods, it's about 5% of the young men. They are running in gangs and drug crews and drug groups and neighborhood sets and posses and whatever language you want to use for this. But they are identifiable, they are different, they stand out. It turns out to be possible to put together a local partnership. It's the police and the rest of law enforcement, prosecutors and parole and probation and all those folks. It is elders of various kinds from the communities in question, and it is people who can offer help. And what that partnership does is begin a direct engagement with the groups that drive the violence. While they do this, they can say to the rest of the community, we understand now it is not the neighborhood that is dangerous, it is not everybody in the neighborhood, it is this very small population of very special people. And what we want to do is sit down with those groups and we want to say to them the following things. We care about you, we want you alive, we want you out of prison, we would like to help you. Your community absolutely rejects the violence but cares about you and wants you alive and in the community. And even we in law enforcement have come to understand that when we lock everybody up, we do you and your families and your community damage, and we don't want to do it anymore. And so we were going to tell you ahead of time how law enforcement is going to do what it is going to do. And as a result of this, in cities all over the country, homicide is coming down, going to jail is going down, and with this new partnership, relationships between the angriest and most needy communities in the country and law enforcement are being repaired. All of this in pretty much real time. And since we know how to do this, and since these problems are so grievous, this needs to become standard practice. And for the first time in the 30 years I've been working on this, the good news is that it is in fact beginning to do that.